Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And it seems like Xbox just lifted the floodgates for news this week. A lot of things is happening over there right now, whether that be with the 20th anniversary, the Xbox fridge, or even with Xbox Game Pass. Yes, they did announce 11 more games for the month of October, including 4 day one releases. Yeah, Xbox Game Pass subscribers just keeps on eating and they just keep winning. You gotta love to be a subscriber here, and especially after you see the lineup that we're gonna talk about later in this video. Simply fantastic. Now, we will also be talking about PlayStation today, as it sounds like they might have a big sequel in development, and then also we need to talk about a big franchise that might be returning here soon as well. So there's a lot of things to go over today, and with that said, let's just go and jump right into it. To start things off today, though, we're going to be talking about The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3, of course, is one of the most beloved games to release over the last decade, as many fans view this as one of the best RPGs ever made. So there's been a lot of excitement over a next-generation port for the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5. They have already confirmed that they are working on this, but an official release date has not been set in stone just yet. Based off what CD Projekt said previously about this next-generation port, their hope is to release it by the end of 2021, but they also said it's not a guarantee. However, it does sound like an official announcement for that release date might be imminent. The Witcher 3 has now been rated for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series by the European ratings body PEGI. And as we've kind of seen time and time again, a lot of the times when these ratings pop up for a game, an official announcement does come soon thereafter. Now, I'm not going to say The Witcher 3's next generation port will release by the end of 2021. It could still be months out and could possibly release early 2022, probably February if that happens, because every game seems to be releasing in February. But nonetheless, that next generation Witcher 3 port does sound to be sooner rather than later. Now, we also need to talk about a big franchise that might be returning here soon, and that is for Splinter Cell. Yes, Splinter Cell might finally be coming back after fans have been asking for years and years for this franchise to return. I mean, yeah, Splinter Cell and Sam Fisher has popped up in some other Ubisoft games such as Ghost Recon. He's also appeared in Rainbow Six, and then of course you have that VR title that they announced last year. But that's not exactly what fans wanted, and it's just left Splinter Cell fans overall really frustrated. But well, that seems to be changing right now, as it looks like Ubisoft has now greenlit a Splinter Cell game. Now, this is coming from both Video Game Chronicles as well as Tom Henderson, which are both well-trusted sources. Yeah, if we actually take a look over here at what exactly Video Game Chronicles had to say, they said this: Ubisoft has greenlit what will be its first mainline Splinter Cell game in a decade. That's according to development sources who told us that the title has been put into production as a means of winning back fans frustrated by recent efforts to revive the franchise in the mobile and VR spaces. It's not clear which studios are working on the project, though two people with knowledge of Ubisoft's plans suggested the new Splinter Cell was being led by a studio outside of its traditional Montreal base. The title is in an early phase of production, the sources said, but there's a small chance it could be announced next year. So there you have it. Based off of two trusted outlets, Splinter Cell will make its return, though there's still some big questions that revolves around this game. You know, the first of which is exactly which studio is working on this game. Apparently it's not the traditional Montreal studio, so that does bring up a big question. And I think another thing that fans are really going to want to see with this Splinter Cell game is, are they going to lean more on the action side of things like we saw with Blacklist, or are they going to go back a little bit more to their roots with some of the more traditional Splinter Cell experiences? I personally would like to see them go back to the roots a little bit more here in this game, because I really don't think that we get enough big AAA stealth-based experiences. I mean, with Hideo Kojima leaving Konami, we don't really have a new Metal Gear Solid game in sight. Yeah, we might get some remakes, but not necessarily a brand new Metal Gear Solid game. So outside of that, I mean, you don't really have a lot of these big franchises that focuses on stealth-based gameplay much anymore, maybe outside of Hitman. So Splinter Cell could really fill that space here in a big way. It's just whether or not they can actually execute, and that really is the big question based off of some of the ways that they've treated this franchise in recent years. I guess we'll see, but it does sound like this game is still a ways away. If we get lucky, we might get an official announcement for this game next year, but don't expect it to release anytime soon. Moving on though, let's go and talk about Xbox Game Pass, as they just announced 11 more games for the month of October, and this is quite the lineup. There's definitely some good games here, including some day one releases, so let's go ahead and take a look over here and check it out. You have Dragon Ball FighterZ, Into the Pit, Echo Generation, Bassmaster Fishing 2022, Non-Guns, The Forgotten City, Backbone, Alan Wake, American Nightmare, Everspace 2, Outriders for PC, and then Age of Empires 4. Now, right away, I can actually say that a few of these are good because I've played them myself, and that includes Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is one of the better fighting games in general right now. I think if you like fighting games, whether you like Dragon Ball or not, this is a must-play game. And then The Forgotten City. I actually talked about this one on Twitter about a month or so back. This has been one of the biggest surprise games for me this year. This is a game that I had heard good things about, so I went ahead and decided to pick up a physical copy a couple months back, and when I played this game, it really took me by surprise. This is like some Skyrim mod or something like that got turned into its own game, and after you play, you can really see why. It's not necessarily an action-driven game, but it's got great atmosphere, it's got interesting puzzles, and the narrative itself is so good. Those are really the things that I came away just loving in this game, and honestly, I'd recommend going into this game blind, but I will say it's one of the better hidden gems available right now, and I would highly recommend it. All I'm trying to say is don't sleep on this game, because if you do like story-driven experiences, you'll probably like The Forgotten City. Now, beyond that, though, we do have several really interesting day one releases here. Really, that is one of the best things about Xbox Game Pass, and we do have 4 day one releases to talk about, being Into the Pit, Echo Generation, Bassmaster Fishing 2022, and then Age of Empires 4. Age of Empires 4 is obviously the big one here, as this is a huge franchise over on PC. I think it's sometimes easy to forget just how big Age of Empires is, but this is one of the biggest RTS franchises of all time, period. And RTS games are very popular on PC, so this is a big and important release for Xbox. This is something that we've seen Xbox do more and more here in recent years. They have really committed to PC, and on occasions like this, they do release first-party exclusive games on PC. Now, there's still that hope that Age of Empires 4 will eventually release on Xbox consoles, which I do believe that it will, but for the time being, this is an important PC release for them, as Age of Empires, this is a huge franchise, and it's the first completely new installment since Age of Empires 3, which released way back in 2005. So it will be really exciting to see how this one turns out when it releases directly into Xbox Game Pass on October 28th. Now, for the console side of things, there's some really interesting day one releases here as well, including Echo Generation. This is a game that they have showed a few different times, and it really stands out for its gorgeous art style. This is a turn-based game that takes inspiration from classic JRPGs, and I've seen a lot of people draw comparisons to this game and then Earthbound. Now, fans have been wanting Earthbound to return for years and years, and a lot of people do view that as one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, so anytime you get compared to Earthbound, that's a very good sign. Now, personally, it gives me Stranger Things vibes, but really, in terms of its art style, it is just absolutely striking, and I think that if you do like turn-based JRPGs, then Echo Generation is definitely a game worth paying attention to. I mean, if this game is even half as good as it looks, we could be in for a special experience when it comes to Echo Generation. This one does release directly into Xbox Game Pass on October 21st. Now, another game that does stand out here would be Into the Pit, and this one actually takes inspiration from your old school first-person shooter games such as Doom. This does seem like a genre that's been making a bit of a comeback here in recent years with games like Doom Eternal and then Dusk. And now here you have Into the Pit, which is like this mix of Doom with some magic-based weapons rather than your typical guns. It's very fast-paced as you would expect, and for somebody who grew up playing games like Unreal Tournament, yeah, I think Into the Pit, it at the very least looks interesting, and because it is releasing directly into Xbox Game Pass, yeah, I might as well go ahead and check it out. I don't know if it'll be good or not, but that's kind of the thing about Xbox Game Pass. It allows you to play some of these games that maybe you would have missed otherwise, and yeah, I just think for the month of October, there's a lot of variety here. There's a lot of interesting looking games that's coming day one. And then also you have some proven, already high quality games such as Dragon Ball FighterZ and then The Forgotten City. There really is a good mix of everything here, and if you are subscribed to Xbox Game Pass, once again, you're eating very well. Now, we also do need to talk about PlayStation today, as we potentially have some massive news here that I know a lot of fans are going to be really excited about. One thing that we have heard from fans a lot since the PlayStation 5 is released is that they want Bloodborne to get a 60 frames per second update. We have seen Sony do this with a few of their games, including The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, and it would be really nice if Bloodborne got the same treatment. I personally think it's one of the best games that PlayStation released last generation, and it's just absolute criminal that that game is only running at 30 frames per second, and that sometimes it does dip below that. So we do need a big 60 frames per second update, and from the sounds of it, not only will we be getting that on the PlayStation 5, but it also might be coming to PC, and on top of that, a new Bloodborne game might be in development. Yes, you heard that right. A lot of things might be happening with Bloodborne right now, and this is according to the Xbox Era Insider Special Nick. Now, we've already heard some different rumors about some of this stuff in the past, but Special Nick, which has had a pretty good reputation here recently, especially with PlayStation leaks for that matter, I mean, he does say that all of this stuff is, from what he's been hearing, is in development. Now, he does say that the PC port is actually finished, but Bluepoint Games in specific, which Sony just acquired, is actually working on a PlayStation 5 remaster and then also a Bloodborne sequel. And I think when you start to think about it, this all does actually make sense. Sony did just acquire Bluepoint Games, and it's already been confirmed that they are working on their own original game. They never said if this was going to be a sequel to something or if it's going to be a new IP. They did kind of leave that up in the air, and because Sony does trust them working on their established games, as they actually noted when they acquired Bluepoint Games, it does make sense to work on a sequel for games such as Bloodborne. I mean, for that matter, Bluepoint Games already has experience working on the Souls genre because they just released that Demon's Souls remake for the PlayStation 5 late last year. Personally, I think they did a phenomenal job with that, so I think that they're a great choice to work on a new Bloodborne game. Now, keep in mind that all of this is just rumors for the time being, but I think that there's reason to believe that this could possibly be true, and I guess we'll just see what happens from this point forward. What I do know, though, is that if a Bloodborne 2 sequel is in development, fans are going to go crazy. Now, speaking of the PlayStation 5, it had a big month over in the United States. The September NPD results are now up, and yes, a few interesting things did appear here, including the PlayStation 5 breaking the 33 consecutive month streak that the Nintendo Switch was the market's leading platform in hardware units sold. That is absolutely crazy when you think about it. The Nintendo Switch apparently was the leading platform in terms of units sold since November of 2018. But here, within just the first year of the PlayStation 5, it's already broken that streak, and there actually might be a few different reasons for this. For one, the PlayStation 5 has been selling extraordinarily well, as this thing is in crazy high demand right now. But also, we do need to keep in mind that the Nintendo Switch OLED did release in October. So that does have me wondering if maybe some people were just holding off on buying the Nintendo Switch and just waiting for that Switch OLED that was going to release just 1 month later. So that is one possibility here, and it does have me very curious to see who will be the leading platform for the month of October. Is it going to be the Nintendo Switch, or is it going to once again be the PlayStation 5? What I do know, though, is that both of these platforms are selling incredibly well, and I'm just going to go and throw the Xbox in here as well. Xbox continues to sell really well. Another noteworthy thing that happened with this September NPD, though, is actually with the software side of things. If you take a look here, the best-selling game in the United States for the month of September was actually Tales of Arise, and that's really big. A lot of the times when it comes to JRPGs, they don't always chart this well in the United States, and with Tales of Arise, it was very much needed. Tales of course, is a long-running series, but with Tales of Arise, this was that next big step that the franchise needed. This game had a longer development cycle compared to past entries within the Tales of franchise, and it really shows with the big visual overall here. They did use Unreal Engine when it comes to Tales of Arise, and it is a legitimate AAA JRPG. It seems like they just put a lot of extra work in this game, and it's really nice to see their efforts pay off here. This is what this franchise needed, and now it can kind of sit up there with some of the bigger JRPGs in the industry, such as Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. So really glad to see this game make such a great debut. And if you do like JRPGs and if you haven't played this game yet, I would highly recommend it. Now, before I go, though, I do want to brush up on one more topic, being a new event for Xbox. They did announce a new Xbox 20th anniversary event for November 15th. However, don't go in expecting any kind of big new game announcements, because they did confirm that will not be happening here. Instead, I imagine any new big game announcements made by them will probably be made at the Game Awards in December, so do keep that in mind. However, if you are an Xbox fan, it still might be worth tuning into this event on November 15th. Just because they're not announcing any new games per se doesn't mean that something interesting won't happen. We could get some updates on maybe possibly that Halo Infinite campaign as an example. Considering they're also going to be taking a look at some of the history for Xbox over the last 20 years, hey, we could get some new backwards compatible games, maybe some Xbox 360 FPS boosted games. So again, if you are an Xbox fan, you might want to tune in for that event on November 15th. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, what is your favorite From Software game and franchise? I mean, really, their games are so good that they've basically created their own genre with games such as Sekiro, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and Bloodborne, but I wanted to know which one is your favorite. And while the winner here was Dark Souls with 38% of the votes, Bloodborne took second place with 24%, Sekiro at third with 21%, and then Demon Souls with 5%. Now, a lot of you all in the comments did vote for games such as Tenchu and Armored Core, so I wanted to go ahead and note that as well. But yeah, the big winner here would be Dark Souls. This being a multi-platform release with 3 individual titles, I wasn't overly surprised to see this one win, but honestly, you can't go wrong with any of these games here. My personal favorite probably comes down to Bloodborne or Demon Souls. I really like the world itself when it comes to Bloodborne, though when it comes to Demon Souls, that one's the one that has a lot of memories for me, because that was my first Souls-like experience. I was actually originally going to import this one from Japan before it got an official Western release. So when this game did eventually get that Western release, I mean, I bought it day one, and ever since then, I've been a big Souls-like fan. But really, all of these games excel at their own thing and are just amazing in their own ways, and it is really interesting to see which one is your all's favorite, and that looks to be Dark Souls. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.